That's in Stilettos.
There's so much stuff that went on this week. The Bulls doing a lot. And then, I love that. And then the whole thing with Penn State, old boy from the FBI coming out with the free report. Forte is probably about to sign soon.
You really think so?
Why not? You don't know?
You're arguing about come for 20,
So what do you think?
13, 14, how they have like a bunch of people that are be on free agency and they have to have obviously available money to sign people. So a long-term deal with him immediately may not be the best move to make.
But it sounds like it's about to happen.
Sounds like it, but it hasn't happened yet.
So you're still down.
We'll see. We'll see. It hasn't happened yet, but we'll see.
Okay. Well, I want to talk about like all the topics. Pretty much do an hour worth of headlines.
So what's the guy's coming on tonight for? What's his name?
His name is Paul Rosen
Rose.
from Best Sports Blog Network. And then like some of the baseball stuff, like Hubel is going back to Boston. Ozzy is coming back to Chicago this week.
When you want to start out with baseball, when you get into
That's what I really want to know. Yeah, kind of probably be the best thing, you know, talk about both the teams getting that one little segment, and then we like pretty much hit everything else from 9:20 right on through the rest of the hour. Talk about this free report. I saw your face when I said that. Why you make that face?
I don't think he's going to dredge up anything that people don't already know. I mean, what this all comes down to is what Penn State's going to do. Are they going to clean house? Should they be sanctioned by the NCAA? I mean, this is like, at the end of the day, there were so many people involved in this, I don't know that you'll ever know everybody. I mean, Charles Day, they fired him anyways. Obviously, Kirby, he's right now he's under indictment because they said that he falsified information. We know Spanier did too. So I mean, I don't think there's anything they can say in this report that's gonna like, I'm gonna be really all that impressed with. I'm just not at this point. What I'm more curious about is what Sandusky's gonna get for his time, how the university's going to restructure, and if anybody's ever gonna turn back and look at Pennsylvania, the state of Pennsylvania, whose child welfare agency totally dropped the ball way before Penn State got enmeshed in this and did nothing to him. Is anyone gonna talk about that? That the state failed to protect the children? I mean, to me, it's like they keep focusing on. I mean, Penn State should not be allowed to. Obviously, the people involved. I don't think the university. There's tons of people. Like the athletes didn't know anything about this. So if you penalize a school,
they gotta do something.
They have to do something, but you kind of like it's such a difficult thing to figure out. What do you do when there are certain people who had nothing to do with it? So it'll be interesting. I mean, I don't think he's going to say anything that I'm going to be shocked at this point.
And you want to talk about Jeremy Lin?
There's a lot of free agency stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
So that can just be around the NBA kind of free agency action, what's going on with that. I mean, you got that, Dwight Howard. I love how he's still out there. The Nets just said, we'd rather keep Brook Lopez than sign Dwight Howard. That's kind of funny. I mean, think about that. It almost seems like people talk about wanting him, but nobody's really putting a real effort to sign him.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. So we can just talk about maybe NBA free agency.
Okay. Try to give away their whole team to get them.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm like, look at this ridiculous ass trade they talking
Usually
about.
put everybody in.
All their whole draft, everybody that drafted, people always on the team. I got something I might try to throw out there. I know nobody cares, but Bryce Harper kills me.
Why is everybody so on Bryce Harper?
He kills me. That dude is a fool. Ozzy went in on him today. It's crazy.
What is it about Bryce Harper that bothers people?
His hair, and now he's only 19, well, just turned 20.
That's what it is.
And he's already
it's like the Tim
great.
Tebow thing. Because he's cute and he's young, it bothers all you
He
fellas.
said he's
Let that
already
go.
a great player.
Already.
People are just, I mean, they're all over this boy. I'm like, what is this wrong?
I don't got that.
I'm like,
I don't have a problem with
it's
Tebow.
like, people wait for him to do something bad so they can talk about it.
Oh, Tebow is very annoying.
Well, here's the thing. Tim Tebow didn't do nothing.
He
actually, what does he
you guys don't see what he
What?
does.
Tell me what he does.
He goes unnoticed. Oh my God. I see behind.
What does he do? No. You're the public guy. What does he do?
He goes out of the way
He
to
does.
show how great of a person that he is.
So because
Like
he
puts
tries
it in your face.
Wait, so
Like,
because he tries to put a good foot forward.
That's not putting a good. It just shows when you're a good
I'm
person.
gonna tell you what it is, because
It
I think because
shows.
he's Christian and he has no problem expressing that, that bothers a lot of people.
Right.
Because he brings God into the whole forefront. And you know, being that we are a godless nation, as someone once said, it bothers people.
That's not true.
I don't
That's
think
people-
that's it.
People have that low religious
Godless
beliefs. they don't want anybody throwing theirs on there if they're gonna have theirs on there. Am I right?
First thing,
T-Bowing.
Am I allowed to say a name?
Here's one thing. He didn't start it when he went to the NFL. He was already doing it when he was in college. People, it's the media who decided to put the camera. He was doing the same thing in college. He's doing nothing different than he's been doing his entire life. And because someone decides to put a camera on you doesn't mean you should stop doing. You should always do you.
Who says you do that?
So is he not supposed to pray on the field because of camera?
You should stop being who you are because it annoys people.
Right.
It's not that.
If he had a rap sheet, that would be alright though, right?
It would be annoying too.
No, because we embrace when people do bad stuff, we love it.
I don't embrace.
You know what? You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. That's the kind of world that we live in.
That's true. We do live in that.
Because if you're good, you're good too. Oh my God! Oh my God!
Okay. That sounds about right. That's it. You done?
That's it.
Alright, cool.
If you love sports, then you'll love Stats and Stilettos.
Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON, Stats and Stilettos. Right back at you. I'm Farouk Basir.
I am Ty Eileen.
I am Maya Gavin.
And we have another jam-packed show planned for you guys tonight out there. Coming up at 10:04, we will get into our NFL divisional previews with training camp being right around the corner. We'll have Paul Grossinger on from bestsportsblognetwork.com to preview. We're going to start with the AFC North. We're going to go that way. The Steelers, Ravens, all those teams, the Browns and the Bengals.
Yep.
We're going to do all that. Coming up at 10:40, we'll have Rashana Baldwin from inglewoodportal.org, and she'll be discussing some of the community activities going on with youth baseball and basketball over there. A lot of great players have come out of Inglewood, of course. Derrick Rose, obviously, and Anthony Davis. So a lot of big things happening over there in Inglewood. We'll be discussing that as well. Plus, we'll be hitting up all the big headlines and everything at 9:20 with our headline segment. And a bunch of good stuff to talk about. Sox, Cubs, the Bulls getting rid of some bums. So we'll cover all that tonight.
Why they gotta be bums? Really?
Hey, call it how I see it. That's all that is.
Okay.
I mean, let's not act like there weren't people that contributed a little bit of something.
Let's be honest. I mean, it may not have been the best case scenario, but there was a point when Corver, people appreciated what he did.
Peace to the hot sauce.
People,
Peace.
So
Good riddance. Get out of here. But let's do some baseball stuff right quick. Sox had a good weekend after the whole All-Star break this week. Going and taking 2 out of 3 in Kansas City, a place where they don't play that great. They're on a pretty big road trip right now. They have 4 in Boston. Kevin Youkilis returning to Boston this week. Interested to see that reaction, what he's going to get with that. And then they have a huge series for July next weekend in Detroit against the now second-place Tigers, a team that you said, Maya, was coming last week, and here they are only 3.5 games back.
it was expected Detroit was going to right the ship at some point and get back into the mix. So I don't think that should be a shock. What I think is more important if you're watching baseball is that the Sox remain consistent. Now, going into the series against Boston, unfortunately, they've had some pitching setbacks. Gavin Foy was supposed to start that game. He has some soreness in the elbow, might be tendonitis. So it looks like he is not going to be starting that series, and Axelrod will be starting as well.
Ooh,
Downside to this, and then you got Philip Umber is pitching the next game, somebody else who's coming back from being on the DL. So the issue is this pitching in this series is going against a pretty decent hitting team. This is going to be kind of, I think, a good barometer to figure out how they can make adjustments because the pitching squad has been injured a good portion of the season.
Yep.
So important series to see how Ventura is going to make adjustments, knowing that his starting pitching is still really struggling to get healthy.
Yeah, and they got relying on all the young guys as well. And Boston will be getting pretty healthy too this week. With Carl Crawford making his season debut, they have on Jacoby Ellsbury, great player, coming back as well. So yeah, this is going to be a big test. But I'm looking at the series after that against Detroit, and the Sox will see Verlander in that series.
Yes, they will.
That's really going to be interesting. I'm pretty sure the way it goes, it'll be Verlander against Sale on Saturday, I'm thinking.
Good matchup.
So that's great.
I'm just kind of hoping that, the whole rumor, like during the All-Star game when he didn't pitch very well, that him connecting with Kate Upton was a reason of his demise. So we need to run Kate around a couple times before the Sox come to town.
Yeah, that'll slow a lot of cats down right there.
But it's Verlander. And you know what? If I had to face him against anybody on the Sox squad, I would pick Sale. I think that's a matchup you'd want to see.
Yep.
So even though I thought Sale kind of seemed a little out of sorts today when he was on the mound.
Yeah, he gave up 10 hits. That was a season high for him. So, but he was still, able to pitch over the mistakes he was making, only giving up 1 run. So I love Chris Sale. I'm glad that he realistically, logically had like 2 weeks off. He pitched an inning on Tuesday in the All-Star game, but he hadn't pitched before that since last Tuesday. So he got a nice bit of rest in. They've been talking about giving him that Strasburg treatment and shutting him down if he gets to a certain amount of innings later on in the year. So that was an opportunity for him to get a lot of rest. So it kind of worked out. Also, here in Chicago, the Cubs, who've been playing pretty well lately.
I was wondering how long you were going to keep the Sox talk going before you went to the other side of town.
Fair and balanced radio,
and
baby.
gave them some kind of credit.
Fair and balanced radio.
On the north side.
I didn't even say anything sarcastic, see?
We were going to give them, an honorable mention, the fact that they're playing some decent baseball. They won, 12 of their last, is it 16
4 in
now?
a row, 12 out of 16.
So, they're playing some good baseball.
Swept the Diamondbacks. Not that, looking at their record, not that it's saying a whole heck of a lot, but they have a better record than the Cubs.
Take your wins where you can get them.
Yep.
That's how it works.
But the story this week is Ozzy's back. The Marlins will be in town this week. Ozzy's back in Chicago.
He had a meltdown today.
It's a given. He's going to have those fair share of meltdowns. He's back in the city. As long as someone puts a mic in his
I'm
face.
still not even quite sure what the meltdown was about.
Doesn't matter.
They broke it down.
It was real baseball-y.
The bat and too far up the bat. And I was like, really? Come on. Can you go sit down? But it's funny when they show the clips on TV because they blur out his mouth.
Yeah. Because Ozzy, you might can't understand anything else he says, but when he cusses, you can read his lips on that. Yeah. So we got that going this week, too. Interested to see what kind of quotes come out of Ozzy. He goes to Wrigley Field. He hates Wrigley, so it's going to be
I bet you he will make an adjustment for some bizarre reason. I wouldn't be surprised if, because he kind of teeters on riding the fence on some things. He may not be as abrupt about disliking Wrigley as when he was with the White Sox. I wouldn't be surprised if he changes his tune just a tad bit.
You don't think he's going to come in all PC, do you? I hope not.
I don't think that's part of who he is in general.
Hope,
but I understand what Maya's saying. So now that he's coming in, not associated with the Chicago White Sox and coming from a completely different state, is he going to back off a little bit, or is he going to hold on to that hatred?
I got a real random baseball question right here for people. Feel free to call in, by the way. 773, I didn't even do our little propers and stuff. 773-591-1690 is the number.
You were so excited about the White Sox, you forgot.
That's a big series next week against the Tigers. That's really huge. I can't wait for it. 773-591-1690 if you want to contribute to the conversation. You can also listen online at www.wvon.com. You go there, click on the iHeartRadio logo, and you can take WVON with you wherever you go. You can also follow us on Twitter at
Stats Stilettos.
It'd be cold if both of you guys said that at the same time. That'd be so dope.
Another song
if we
just
did that.
popped in my head for some reason.
At the same
time.
I'm so tired of that song, but it's so dang on catchy.
It just, you find yourself singing
It's
it.
kind of like
voila,
magic. Why?
Oh, wow. I don't even know none of that music.
Yes,
Yeah,
you do.
right.
Whatever.
So.
Whatever you do, you know.
Says the person that picks all of our random songs.
A great up-and-coming player in the league, but Mike Trout. This dude is balling, man. He's only 20 years old as well. He'll be 21 in about a month. And I thought it would be interesting to throw this out to my female co-host here. Who would they take as a player right now? Seeing, even though Harper has a lot more versatility, but this Mike Trout, he plays great defense, steals a lot of bases. Among the league leaders in hitting already, he's an outstanding player. So while some people who wouldn't follow baseball really close would probably automatically say Bryce Harper because they know the name, everybody's heard his name, but I think Trout is a better player right now.
Why do you feel that?
I was going to say that because I feel like you're asking the question because there's something behind it.
No. Bryce Harper is that dude. He's a great player to me already. He's an outstanding hitter, and like I said, he's versatile. They play him all over the place in their outfield for the Nationals, and he is a major reason why I think they're going to be in the playoffs this year. But Mike Trout, I feel like, doesn't get the recognition, and he's doing more things. Like I said, he's among the league leaders in steals. Matter of fact, I think he leads the league in steals, if I'm not mistaken.
All right. If you go by stats, this is how they stack up. Mm-hmm. And I'm just actually going to give stats across the board and not say who it is, and then tell me who you think it is.
Okay. I love games like this.
We'll go from there. So we've got one player, as it stands right now, batting average 344, home runs 12, runs batted in 40, runs 58. The other player that is a potential candidate here, batting 281, home runs 8, runs batted in 25, and runs 44. If we go purely by stat, who is a better player? Player number 1 that I said stats, or player number 2?
1, of course, with the numbers.
1, of course.
Yeah.
Who's player 1?
Mike Trout.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you go purely by just stats, which I always say you can use them how you like, 'cause we had this conversation about Adam Dunn last week. Mike Trout, you're right, seems like the player that should be getting more notoriety. But you know, it's like with every sport, every league, you have to have that poster child that comes into the league. And this year, it's Bryce Harper.
He's Mr. Baseball.
He's Mr. Baseball for this year. It isn't, and Mike Trout can have a fantastic season, and he's a quality player. I'd take him. But I'm just saying, right now, the face of baseball, they're looking to build that pipeline. It's Bryce Harper.
All right, after this break, I want to hopefully come close to putting a bow on the whole Penn State thing, kind of wrapping that up with this whole free report that came out this week. I want to get our newest person back in the studio, our co-host here. I want to get her thoughts.
So much to say.
So we're gonna go with that and do some headlines here on Stats and Stilettos. Stay tuned.
Stats and Stilettos.
Sobering finding is the total disregard for the safety and welfare of Sandusky's child victims by the most senior leaders at Penn State. The most powerful men at Penn State failed to take any steps for 14 years to protect the children who Sandusky victimized. Mr. Spanier, Schultz, Paterno, and Curley never demonstrated, through actions or words, any concern for the safety and well-being of Sandusky's victims until after Sandusky's arrest.
Welcome back to Stats and Stilettos. So there's been all this talk about Penn State, and I've had a lot of heated conversations. You know, I feel like people bring these college football issues to me, especially things that have to deal with the Big Ten. And after, all of the news broke, we talked about it here on the show. So people have been asking me on Facebook, on Twitter, when they see me out, how do I feel about Penn State? What do I think the punishments should be? And, I had one heated discussion with somebody on Facebook, and he said, what more did you want Joe Paterno to do? He told the people that he was supposed to tell. And so I asked him, I said, well, as a man, if you knew about a situation where children were being molested, would you run and tell the teacher like a 5-year-old, or would you do something? As the leader of this organization, as somebody with that kind of power in the entire state of Pennsylvania, can you not go to somebody else and say, I don't want him in my facility. I don't want him on campus. I don't want him anywhere near my players, even though it had nothing to do with his players per se. But why would you even want to associate yourself with something like that? Why would you not, as a man, go out of your way to make sure that no more children were hurt? And then the whole thing about the statue came up. And I do believe that the statue on campus should come down. However, I do believe it should stay on campus. I just don't think it should have the placement that it has right now, because I feel like a statue is to celebrate someone. And I don't think that Joe Paterno is somebody that we should celebrate anymore. And I was the first one to say, if it came out that Michael Jordan was doing, had a history of, something malicious with children, I would be the first one at the United Center with a hammer trying to get the statue down. But, it should come down.
I think what makes this so complicated, and like I said, I'm not even speaking from this like on a secondhand nature, because like I deal with this in my real life, in my job. I've had to interview people that were victims as well as predators, and part of what unfolds in this, and I know it's hard for people to wrap their mind around, is that imagine scenarios that when it's closer to home, where you have a child who's being molested by several family members, and parents won't come forward. I think there's something that people just go into this moment of suspended disbelief and they don't act properly. I'm not giving Joe Paterno a pass. I mean, he could have done more. I mean, they were all mandated reporters. And mandating reporting is something interesting because you need facts. You can't base on things on assertions. I still have an issue with the grad assistant, who I feel is really being given a pass because he's testifying. Because that is that one person who was actually witnessed that act, not heard about it, but witnessed the act and didn't stop it. I think I find more angst with him.
And his story.
And his story
keeps changing.
Granted, the only thing that is set in stone with him is the fact that He was there. He heard it. At first, he said he heard it, and he called his dad, who told him to tell Joe Paterno the next day. Then it turned into, I heard skin slapping. I slammed the locker. What grown man at 27 doesn't stop abuse from happening? I really have an issue with him out of a lot of people. Actually, there were 3 people who witnessed the act that never stopped it. I think I find more anger with those people that you saw it with your own 2 eyes. Even though Penn State made a choice to tell the grad assistant that they'd take care of it, he was an actual witness to the crime. He could have still have gone to the police. I have this thing about, Joe Paterno isn't innocent, but please stop giving a pass to other people as well. I mean, at this point, he's dead and gone, and that's not going to change. He can't defend himself. He can't even kind of speak on anything. So it is what it is, and we kind of have to take that for, what this report says. And unless his family decides to go get an attorney to go against this and say, hold up.
But even his family, has come forward a little bit and said, his bad. They've acknowledged that he probably knew more than he admitted to knowing before he passed.
It's just this. Here's the thing that's so crazy about this scandal. And here's the thing. This isn't the only place that it's happened. It's happening in tons of places. People don't know how to deal with this kind of stuff. They're just not mentally equipped to figure out, when you're close to a situation, how do I hand it properly? I think a lot of people kind of get stuck in the middle and know it's not okay, because you leave these victims kind of there not being able to, take care of themselves. I was talking with Farouk about this earlier before you came to the pre-meeting, and I said, it bothers me that the state of Pennsylvania Children's Welfare Office actually investigated this long before the event happened, that the grad assistant actually witnessed, did an investigation. They knew that he had improper contact with children, but said there was nothing that they could actually, bring charges against him about. The very system that was supposed to protect the children failed. So, I mean, when I say this has failed across the board, it isn't just at Penn State. The entire state's is at fault for not handling the situation properly.
All right, everybody. So what's next then? What's next for the Penn State University football program? All that. What should be next, and what is actually going to be next?
This is bigger than the football program. This is about an institution.
Yeah.
So if the NCAA decides to bring down sanctions, this isn't just about the football team. This is about, yes, the football department was integral in this.
And it's really honestly not anything that the NCAA can step in and do anything about.
Exactly.
Because it didn't technically have anything to do with student athletes, the actual football program. It just so happened to happen
on the premises.
Yeah.
He used
of where they
used
practice and
Right.
shower and where their lockers are. So it was associated with the Penn State football team because
But it was a coach's miscue, though.
But it has absolutely nothing to do. The NCAA doesn't police those type of issues.
But no.
So
What
it's
I'm
not
saying,
anything.
What I'm saying is, when coaches mess up, when they go illegally call somebody or text somebody like that, the schools still get punished for that. I mean, this is a coach doing something that they weren't supposed to do. So I think, this has very much
but here's the
something to do
thing.
with
Well,
the
Talking
football
about
program.
a coach that's buried.
Well,
No. I'm talking about Sandusky himself. I'm not talking about Paterno.
but Sandusky was actually retired from the university.
He was just using the facilities.
So I mean, this gets
So it's
really
a Penn
complicated.
State.
It gets complicated.
It's a Penn State thing.
If the board, if their board of trustees was wise, they would be extremely aggressive on this, so that the NCAA would maybe not. I mean, they've started the process, but I think they need to take this report and dig a little bit deeper and start doing some proactive things, so that everybody in the university that, let's say, had nothing to do with this. I mean, it's like you're punishing an entire system. The question is that fair? Is it fair? Let's say, is it fair to the football players that were playing there on a scholarship who had no knowledge of this, didn't know of the misuse of the facilities or that this was going on? How do you decide what's fair and what's not fair? I mean, the key thing is Sandusky going to jail. That's for the victim side of it.
Yeah.
And if a school can find some way, obviously, to compensate, I don't know how this is going to work, that could be a part of it too. But when you talk about sanctions from the NCAA, what specifically are you bringing sanctions for? What are the sanctions for?
For allowing this to take place on your campus, in your football facilities. A shower is part of their football facilities, part of their athletic facilities.
Well, for
So I
instance,
think-
when the Board of Trustees became aware that Joe Paterno potentially knew something of this, now, mind you, when they fired him, that was a big deal. That was a big deal for them to do that. They didn't blink twice. They said, this is what we have to do. Boom, you're fired. Curley was gone. They fired the president of the school. The Board of Trustees was very proactive, and when they found out people were doing things that was to a detriment to the university, to the institution, they acted very swiftly.
I'm not convinced of that. I think it was more of the media scrutiny that really forced them to act that way. I don't think they probably were sitting on that information for a while, and once the media kind of turned up the pressure on them, then they wanted it to seem like they were doing all this proactive stuff. I think they had that information.
I have to
as
agree
well.
a little bit with that, because once it came out publicly, everyone jumped on it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't new information to Penn State.
Not at all.
Well, once the grand jury report came out, and I think the picture was painted, like how much their facility was used. I mean, let's be honest. I know this is hard for people to do because people want a knee-jerk reaction. Before you start making, rash decisions, you do need to get information. It's not enough just to say there was abuse that happened on your campus. You need to get the full story. I know it bothers people that they need to be systematic and figure things out. I think they gathered the information, which was partially what the media did provide, along with the grand jury report, and from there they made decisions. I don't have an issue with that. I don't like when people do knee-jerk stuff just for the sake of it.
All right, let's do headlines.
Headlines. Headlines.
Extra, read all about it in the papers.
Headlines.
I'm sure everybody's aware of what Kobe and Mike were battling about earlier this week.
Yes, absolutely hilarious. Just makes me want to shake my fist at Kobe is more than I already do.
And why is that?
Because he's an idiot.
Why did he say that was so idiotic? That they could beat the Dream Team from 92 in one game? I agree with that 100%. I was having this argument Friday night with
Wait, you agree with saying that they could beat?
They could beat the 92 Dream Team in one game. That's all Kobe said. He didn't say they would destroy him 100 times if they played him 100 times.
Do you agree? You agree that could happen?
I agree that Kobe...
Out of how many games?
He said one game. All he said was one game.
So we meet on the court. Everybody's the same age.
Prime.
In their prime.
Not the 40-year-olds.
Not Mike now.
No. What he was, the 92 Dream Team as it was constructed then. That means Larry Bird was stretched out on the sideline, laying out. He wasn't in his prime on the 92 Dream Team. Michael Jordan, I think the four people who were in their prime at that time were Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Karl Malone, and David Robinson were in their prime.
I can't even take you serious right now because
I'm sorry.
The 92 Dream Team,
they're
the Dream Team for a reason.
Because they were the first.
And then,
that's why.
And look at the Olympic team right now.
Yes,
first of all, they don't
right
even
now.
have all the original players that were supposed to be playing in the Olympics in the first place.
Good point. But look at what they already have now.
Are we talking about the team that was supposed to be playing in a couple of weeks, or are we talking about the team that's left?
I'm talking about the team that's left right now.
You're talking about LeBron and Kobe.
And Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook and Chris Paul. There's still some pretty damn good players on that team.
I agree with Magic. I agree with Magic. Magic said, first of all, only 3 of you might have made the Dream Team.
Oh, come
Let's
on
just start
now.
there.
Come on now. What else is Magic going to say? Magic wasn't in his prime. Magic was just coming off the whole HIV thing. So Magic was way past his prime. He was way past his prime. He wasn't the player that he was in the mid to late 80s.
Wait. First of all, you do realize that was the same season.
Yes.
It wasn't like he had been gone for 10
years
years and then all of a sudden he came back like, oh, wait,
playing.
I can still play. No, it was like he was playing and then they decided, the team, they didn't really know how to handle the whole HIV thing. So he stopped playing. Then he went to the All-Star.
So you guys are saying.
So I need to understand what you're saying right now. Magic did not stop playing because Magic fell apart.
What I'm saying is I'm agreeing with Kobe. If they had a game, they are capable of beating them in a game. They're not. He wasn't saying like a 7-game series or anything like that. One game, they can't beat them one time. You guys don't think?
No, because
they wouldn't beat them one time. They played 100 times.
In my mind, if you say we're just gonna play one game, that means we're coming to the court right now, play this one game. No more games after that. Right. We win. No, Kobe. Go sit down. You were 2 years old. Shut up.
You're talking about current players that maybe have more athleticism, but that 92 squad had skills.
Yes.
Their basketball skill was far more solid than these players you're talking about now. So what you have is athleticism versus skill. And at the end of the day, skill will always come over athleticism. If you happen to have both, then actually you're great. But you're not talking about on this new team, every player has all of those attributes about them. We say it about Kobe, but his athleticism has kind of dropped off since he's gotten a bit older. You can say it about LeBron. Okay, he's got both. Kevin Durant. But still, The way that Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, all of them play basketball was smart.
Back in '92, Larry Bird.
Was smart basketball. It was a different type of basketball than you say play now. And the way Kobe said it, and I like Kobe, was, hey, if we play them, we beat them. Not talking like no 7-game series, like it's a wrap. We face up, we take that.
You're listening to Stats and Stilettos.
Welcome back to Stats and Stilettos here on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON. Farouk, Maya, and Ty. The phone number here is 773-591-1690. We've been talking NBA, well, specifically Kobe and his whole thing he went on this earlier last week about the dream team of now versus the dream team of 1992. And nobody sees the light except for Farouk. So we talked about that. We covered Penn State. We covered some baseball stuff. And coming up here in this hour at 10:40, we'll have Rashana Baldwin on from EnglewoodPortal.org to talk about some good stuff going on here in Chicago and the Englewood area. We'll get to some Bears info as well. Matt Forte looks to be closing in, or does he?
Everybody keeps saying that.
On a deal.
And tomorrow is the deadline to get the long-term contract in place.
Mm-hmm.
And we've heard really nothing. Like no rumors,
we just keep hearing, they're
no
getting close.
whispering. Just we're getting close. But I feel like we've been getting close since the end of the season.
So we'll do all that probably around 10:20 or so. You can listen online at www.wvon.com to the show as well. Follow us on Twitter at StatsStilettos, like the Facebook page and all that good stuff. But joining us right now live on the line is the co-founder and editor of the Best Sports Blog network of websites, and he is a graduate of the University of the Columbia University School of Journalism here in Chicago. This is Paul Grossinger to help us talk some AFC North as we begin our weekly breakdowns of all the NFL divisions, starting with the AFC North this week. How you doing tonight, Paul?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Now, I guess we can start with the the Ravens over in the AFC North. A lot of people feel like they should have been representing the AFC in the Super Bowl last year. Talk about some of the offseason moves they've made this year.
Well, the Ravens look good overall, They've had a very good offseason in certain ways. However, they do have injury problems. Terrell Suggs is out. They had a pretty decent draft, but they did lose Ben Grubbs in free agency. So Anquan Bolden, their wide receiver, is aging, and Joe Flacco hasn't really progressed as a quarterback. So there are concerns, but Ray Lewis is coming back, and he'll lead that defense. So it's really hard to see them not making the playoffs, at least as a wild card. So you have to be pleased if you're a Ravens fan overall.
And Ray Rice is another guy, much like Matt Forte here in Chicago, that's in the market for extension here. How's that progress working so far for him?
Well, he's going to get an extension because the Ravens need him so much. Joe Flacco is a good quarterback, and they like him, but he's not a difference maker like Aaron Rodgers or someone like that, or even Jay Cutler. They need a really strong running game, and Anquan Bolden, their receiver, like I said, is getting a little older, so they really need an explosive runner. So Ray Rice is going to get his extension. It's just a question of what time and how much heartache is going to happen there and how many personalities are going to have a problem before they're done.
How about for the O-line? It seems like they had quite a few players that were in free agency that left in. Jarrett Johnson went to the Chargers, and they also had Ben Grubbs left as well. So they're having some changes to the O-line. Do they have something feasibly in place that they're going to make those adjustments with them being gone?
Well, they still have Michael Orton. They still have Marshall Yanda at guard and Matt Burke. So it's going to be a little older because Yanda and Burke are quite old, especially Burke, who's practically ancient at this point, and we all know him from the Vikings. But they're still going to be a very solid line. I have a hard time seeing them not protecting Flacco. And Flacco really, he has a big, strong arm, so he can get the ball down the field, and Ray Rice is an explosive runner. So they should be okay, at least for one more season. But they're probably going to have to do some real fine-tuning after that.
Okay.
How do they see? What is the organizational kind of standpoint on Joe Flacco? Do they trust him to be their long-term quarterback? Or are they happy with him just being sort of a quote-unquote game manager? Are they looking for someone else potentially further down the road if he doesn't step up his game this year?
Well, it's funny because I went to school at Johns Hopkins originally for my undergrad, so I was familiar with the Baltimore media, and they go back and forth on Flacco, and so does the organization. Occasionally you see rumblings that they're not all that satisfied with him because his completion rate is never really very high, and he does seem to fluster a little bit in those big games to lead them to the Super Bowl. But at the same time, this is a guy that has led them to the playoffs multiple times, won multiple playoff games, has really returned Baltimore to being the class of that division along with Pittsburgh. So it's hard to see the franchise jettisoning him unless he starts to have issues with results, along with the fact that his stats aren't exactly what you'd expect.
So if Ray Lewis does not get the Super Bowl ring that he wants this year. How many more seasons do you think he honestly has left in him?
It's really hard to say because the man keeps ruining our expectations. And every year you expect him to want to hang it up, but he doesn't. I wouldn't want to bet against him. I think he can go at least a few more seasons. He's still playing at a Pro Bowl level in certain ways, and he still makes a tackle when he needs to. He's definitely slower when you watch him than he used to be, but then again, he used to be one of the greatest to ever play. So if he loses a step, 2 or 3, he's still going to be a special player.
All right, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their defense obviously has always been their calling card, but what's going on with the Steelers as we look forward to the season coming up?
Well, it's really interesting. They really had some great defenders that they cut. Aaron Smith and James Ferrier were both longtime great defenders that they cut. And then, of course, on offense, Heinz Ward got cut, the iconic wide receiver that they have. But at the same time, it's really hard to see the Steelers declining too much because of some of the progress they made on offense, which defense has always been their calling card, but offense is the NFL's calling card now. They have David DeCastro, the Stanford standout at guard, who they just drafted. They drafted Mike Adams, who Big Ten fans will be familiar with, from Ohio State, to play tackle. That's going to be a strong line along with Pouncey at center. Line has been weak for the offensive line has been weak for the Steelers for not many, but quite a few years. So it's going to be really interesting to see what Ben Roethlisberger, who can really get around out of the pocket, can do with a strong offensive line. It's going to be quite impressive. They also have some young defenders. I'm going to be really interested to see what Ziggy Hood can do on defense now that they've cut some of those older defenders. And of course they have James Harrison and Troy Polamalu as well. So the Steelers aren't going to fall off the map. They're always fine-tuning. They're always retooling for the next season. So you have to expect Pittsburgh to still be in that 10-11 win range that we always expect them to be in.
And what about Mike Wallace? I know he was kind of in the free agent market. You think they're going to end up wrapping up that and making sure he stays with the Steelers?
It's hard to see Mike Wallace leaving, kind of like Ray Rice. He's just so important to that team. Obviously, the Steelers don't overpay guys ridiculously, but at the same time, Wallace is an explosive wide receiver. Ben Roethlisberger is an explosive quarterback, and they finally have the line to protect him. So it would just seem to be counterproductive to let a player like that go when you've made so much effort on the offensive side of the ball.
Okay.
All right, also with the Steelers, I'm looking at their website, man, and the fifth thing on here has Ben Roethlisberger with some guy on the end, and then surrounded by 3 relatively attractive women, and my head just goes way somewhere else with him. Is he going to behave himself is my first question.
Had a baby.
He got married.
Well,
What's that got to do with anything?
That don't mean anything.
I mean, it doesn't, but I'm saying he's trying to make a difference.
Well, nobody can get into Ben Roethlisberger's head. It's really hard to say whether he's going to behave himself. I think he really surprised us the last time when, after a few small issues, he really got into the big run-in. That said, he seems to have put it behind him a little bit. It's not in the major news in the NFL right now. People seem to have moved on. So I think the right answer is we all got to sort of let it go until he makes another mistake and hope he doesn't make one. But that certainly seems to be the attitude of Steelers fans. You don't seem to see too many of them pushing for him to get traded these days.
What's Rashard Mendenhall's progress looking like, and what are the Steelers looking like overall at running back?
Running back is the weakest position the Steelers seem to have on offense right now. It's hard to say exactly where Mendenhall will be. Obviously when those guys recover, especially at running back, there's a big question as to, how effective they're going to be. Same question for Adrian Peterson, for the Vikings when he recovers. Is he going to be the same player? But we can expect Mendenhall to make a full recovery eventually.
All right, the Cleveland Browns.
Yes, let's start with their.
They're going to be amazing this year.
With their running game, obviously, with letting Peyton Hill as he's with the Chiefs. What's even going on with the Browns? I mean, it seems like they're a little bit of everywhere.
The Browns are in a really interesting position because they were getting these workhorse players, these consistent players for a few years, and then all of a sudden they go for the home run and draft the running back Trent Richardson out of Alabama. Richardson's a really interesting pick. I wouldn't usually advocate drafting running backs in the first round, but he's really quite special. He's the best running back prospect since Adrian Peterson, for sure, and I'm going to include Chris Johnson in that equation. Wow. So he has a real opportunity to be special there. He put up big stats at Alabama, which is really not a big stat school, which is one of the interesting things. It's definitely a collective achievement environment under Nick Saban, but he still put up big stats, and so I'm expecting him to do well. However, I am not so sure about the Brandon Whedon pick at the end of the first round this year. Whedon was a very good quarterback in college, but he's quite much older, as everybody knows, and he also had He made a lot of throws and completed a lot of touchdowns for a lot of yards, but he did have quite a high interception ratio. And if you watched him play, he threw a lot of throws quite high, and sometimes his throws didn't have quite accurate zip that you want on them. I'm not necessarily convinced that he's going to make the jump to being a truly successful elite NFL starter. To me, he's more of a caretaker player, especially at his age. So I'm not necessarily sure the Browns fans are going to see the heir to that position there. The Cleveland might still be looking, but they'll certainly enjoy Trent Richardson's game. And they have some very good defensive players, and of course they have a very good line with Joe Thomas at tackle. So you have to be somewhat excited about their progress, but I don't know about Whedon yet.
You got to believe, Whedon will get an opportunity looking at their quarterback depth chart. You got Thaddeus Lewis from Duke, another rookie, another young guy, and Colt McCoy, of course, the starter. I'm not sure about him myself as long-term starter in the NFL, so you got to see at least Whedon getting some type of opportunity to take that position.
Oh, you're totally right. Whedon will definitely get his opportunity. They drafted him to play. They drafted him to start, especially when you consider how old he is. They're not going to take their time pulling the Aaron Rodgers with him. They don't want him to be 32 when he finally starts. So he's going to get his shot and get his shot quickly. And I may be wrong. He's a smart guy. He's resourceful. He has a lot of life experience, so he very well may make it work. When I look at him and I see him play, I don't necessarily see the exact NFL tools or the upside that I would like drafting a quarterback in the first round, especially when I went all out to get my running back and I have a great line, and that's really the last piece to my offense.
Being that, we're looking at these players and kind of questioning the players that the Browns have drafted, how many more seasons do we think Mike Holmgren has?
Oh, it's really hard to say with Holmgren because he really did a great job in Green Bay. Even as Bears fans, we have to admit he did a great job as the coach there, as hard as it was for us. And he also did a great job in Seattle, both up in the front office and as a coach. So I don't necessarily want to question his decisions just yet. I think he inherited a really bad situation, not just organizationally, but also they just didn't have a lot of players there that you would have considered foundational players when he arrived. That said, he has whiffed on a number of picks, and I think the Whedon one will be something of a definer for him. If Trent Richardson really explodes this year and Whedon doesn't quite, then they're going to give him another year to see how Whedon does, and he'll have some free agency money to spend. It'll also have another draft. And he did wheel and deal, so they should have some additional picks to play with in future drafts. But at the same time, definitely his days are a little bit numbered if Whedon doesn't work out. And certainly if something happens to Richardson, then I think we're going to be looking at new leadership in Cleveland.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are looking for new leadership in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Was that?
Yeah, maybe not just the Browns.
How much of that Bengals thing was real last year? I know they got a lot of young guys, but is that a team that really kind of just snuck up on people? People aren't really checking for them like that, and they're going to kind of fall back a little bit this year?
It took me a little time studying the Bengals to make my decisions on that because I always have a really hard time buying into Cincinnati, especially nowadays when you hear them talked about as the great sleeper team, because obviously the Bengals have been terrible in almost every season under Mike Brown. I'm not even sure they've had repeat playoff performances since the Anthony Munoz era, so that's a really tough call to make. With that said, the Carson Palmer trade that they pulled with Oakland was brilliant. They got multiple assets for a guy who was out either way. He was going to retire or he was going to be traded. He wasn't playing for them again, and they got multiple assets for him. I also really like their draft. Dre Kirkpatrick is a really good player at corner, and Kevin Zeider is a solution at guard. And I like George Iokla at safety. He was a bit of a sleeper in the 6th round, but he could really be a good solution for them. They have other good foundational defensive players. And I like their offense. I even like the addition of Benjaris Green-Ellis at running back. So looking at them, I think they're a very solid team. With that said, they had a lot of cap space this year. They were sort of competing with the Buccaneers in terms of having the most cap space for the ability to get some of those elite players, Carl Nicks, Vincent Jackson, and they got a number of guys, but they didn't get anybody elite, nobody who you would sort of think about as a special player to add to your roster. So I was a bit put off by that, and especially because it's the Bengals. You have to think whether or not they're mentally all in, or if they're going to be like, okay, we need to go 10-6 this year, and we're okay with that. I do think that they have a 9 to 10 win team this year. They're solid across the board. They're solid on both sides of the ball. But to call them a Super Bowl contender, I don't think so. I don't see anybody there who's truly a good player who's going to take them the distance.
To ask you about Andy Dalton, what does he max out as a quarterback in the NFL? I'm not sure on him either. I don't know if he's more of a system guy, if he's going to take the next level leap to become some type of star or anything. Well, I'm just curious about your thoughts on him.
I like Dalton a lot in a certain way. You know, he was a great player at TCU, you know, special guy as a leader. At the same time, he doesn't necessarily have the lead tools. He has good tools. So I see him as a guy who's going to be an NFL starter. He's certainly somebody who you can trot out for 10 years, somebody who can bring you to the playoffs. But again, that goes back with the Bengals. Is he a guy that's going to lead them to a Super Bowl championship, multiple Super Bowl championships? No. Is he the next Peyton Manning? Definitely not. He doesn't have that elite aura about him. He's what you would call an elite caretaker quarterback, in my opinion. So he's somewhere in between somebody who is taking care of you for 1 year and somebody who's going to take you to the next level. I don't think he's quite at the top of that end, but he's certainly good enough for a while, which good enough is really the Bengals' calling card in a lot of ways. So, you know, that he's perfect for them.
So we're going to see pretty much another 3-team race here like we saw last year with Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Cincinnati kind of fighting it out for the top? Or
Maybe. I still think the Steelers are the best in the division right now, even with the cuts on the defensive end of the ball. They're just going to have an elite offense. And the Ravens definitely have big concerns. Ray Lewis, like we said, is getting old. Terrell Suggs is out. That's two of their biggest players. Ben Grubbs is gone. And Ray Rice, of course, will be there, like we said, but who knows exactly what he'll be like after all these contract discussions. Players who have contract discussions and who don't necessarily participate fully in camps don't always play all that well. So the Ravens are looking at being maybe a 9-10-win team this year. I would say 10 wins. I think the Steelers are more closer to 11 or 12. I think that defense is a little younger, and we will actually see some surprising results out of them. The Bengals, to me, I'm not sure if they're the third player in that race. I think they are. I think they'll be in it for quite a while. I don't see them falling off the map like they have in the past. But if I were to pick a team that's going to narrowly miss the playoffs at 9-7, Cincinnati would be at the top of my list. And I think the Browns have a year or two more of rebuilding. I like Trent Richardson, but I don't see them being a player this year. They're a 5-11, 6-10 team right now.
All right, Paul. Well, we appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot. You were great.
All right, have a good one.
Thanks,
All
Paul.
right,
Bye-bye.
Stats and Stilettos here on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON. Farouk, Maya, Ty, and here having some good fun, having another lively, fast-paced show. So almost over. Wow. Crazy. All right, joining us now live in studio, one of my homies, Rashana Baldwin. She is an editorial manager from inglewoodportal.org. She's also the executive producer and co-host of Impresario Radio, which you can hear Wednesday nights at 9 on this very radio frequency, 1690 WVON. And she's here to spread the word about Inglewood, the good word, not that crap you see on the news. So how you doing tonight?
I'm great. I love that intro.
That's what I do.
Thank you guys for letting me come on this show and talk about my community, Inglewood.
We always like to hear about good stuff, so absolutely.
So lay it on us. All right, there's some good stuff going on over there as far as in the basketball, baseball, sports in general. Of course, everybody knows Derrick Rose from Inglewood, of course. Anthony Davis now being well known from Inglewood as well. So.
Exactly. And I'm happy that they are two residents that come from Inglewood, and they're doing great things in sports. And it shows, just to show you that, you know, great people come from the community of Inglewood, such as myself and them too. And we have a lot of youth events, youth sports events that's happening in Inglewood. One of them is Hoops in the Hood. Have you guys heard of that?
No, tell us something about it.
So Hoops in the Hood has been around for several years. It's a citywide basketball program where you go into the neighborhoods like Inglewood, Pilsen, Humboldt Park, and they take the youth, teach them basketball for about maybe 5 to 6 weeks, and they scrimmage each other. At the end of the summer in August, they have a huge tournament. Okay. It's pretty awesome. So many people come out and support it because one of the benefits of the program is to not have the kids afraid to go in their community and do activities and be out and about and be engaged. So it's kind of, in a sense, taking back the streets of your own community and being engaged to encourage other residents to do, you know, wonderful things. And I look back and think, like, was Derrick Rose a part of these sports camps? Was Anthony Davis ever a part of these sports events? And it's just a wonderful thing. So if you want to do Hoops in the Hood, if you want to put your kids in Hoops in the Hood, definitely in Inglewood. It's already started, but you can come to the Salvation Army, which is located on 63rd Street, 945 West 69th Street, which is 69th in Morgan. And it ranges from the ages of 9 up until 17. So they have different leagues for your kids, both girls and boys.
Do you have to live in Inglewood?
You don't have to live in Inglewood. You just find your participating community, possibly Humboldt Park, Pilsen, Austin, back of the yards. So, yeah.
Okay. All right, tell us about some of the other events you guys have going.
Another event that's going on, I know you love baseball, as you mentioned.
Yes,
we have a free summer baseball clinic that's going to kick off tomorrow at Ogden Park on 64th and Racine. It's sponsored by Kerry Wood, which is the future Hall of Fame pitcher.
He's not. He's not a future Hall of Famer. He's a Cub Hall of Famer. That's about it.
As you know, he's from the Chicago Cubs, and his foundation, Woods Family Foundation, along with the Chicago Baseball Academy and Little Sluggers, which is in partnership with the Chicago Park District and the Chicago Public Schools, are putting on this the free baseball clinic from July 16th up until the 19th, and it's from 8:30 to 12:30, and it's free. I forgot to mention Hoops in the Hood is also free, and this baseball clinic is free. So it's from 8:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. And what it's doing is teaching the young children out there how to, play sports, how to develop techniques, how to work as a team, how to be engaged. And again, it's free food, and they're going to provide them with free equipment. So these are a lot of great sport activities that's taking place right in Inglewood that many people don't talk about and don't even know that exist. So one of the things that I like to do when I'm not on Impresario Radio is also use the Inglewood portal as a way to talk about the awesome things that happen in Inglewood besides the violence.
All right, so obviously, you probably hear this everywhere you go, the prerequisite question about Inglewood. You made it out of Inglewood, or I didn't know this stuff was happening in Inglewood because every time I turn on the news, somebody's getting killed or something stupid like that, you know what I mean? So how do you fight that stigma when you're trying to promote, positive stuff like this?
I always talk wonderful about my community. When they ask me that question, you kind of have to answer that question. I pretty much tell them it's great parenting. I have my mother who put me in great activities like I just mentioned. So how do you survive out of that community? Don't get caught up in the hoopla. You don't have to let your surroundings overcome you or dignify or justify who you are. So pretty much stay involved in something positive. You don't have to be influenced. It's so easy to get influenced, but it's so easy to join a sports team or find something positive to do. And many people say that it's nothing to do, but if you reach out and do the research, you can find out about the events that's happening in Inglewood and in the community and what's happening at your local park district.
And we'll take your information and put it on our Facebook page as well, so people can go there and look it up and make sure they take advantage of the opportunity, because we talked about this last week when we did we talked about the Disappearing Act of African Americans in Major League Baseball. And it's about anytime these type of opportunities come along, putting them out there so people can know about them, so they can get the kids involved. Part of obviously stopping the violence is creating opportunity for kids to do something with their lives, exposing them to something more. It's not about just talk about it, be about it. So this sounds like something that we definitely would love to promote and make sure we can get as much out there as we can.
And I love the fact that I have the Inglewood portal as a voice and a platform to share the information, because I always mention to everyone, they never talk about the great things that happen in Inglewood. You never see these sports events being covered, these youth events in Inglewood being covered. But if you go into Lincoln Park, if you go to somewhere else, major media is all over the place. Like, you would have thought that the Bulls won a championship again. But when it happens in Inglewood, it's like, not until Derrick Rose or Anthony Davis makes it out of the community, then they're kind of paying attention to it, but then it goes right back, to violence. So that's why I wanted to share the information.
All right, thanks a lot, Rashana. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks to Paul Grossinger for joining us tonight from the Best Sports Network, Sports Blog Network. Wow. All right. Also, thank you to Rashana Baldwin from inglewoodportal.org for joining us as well. Thanks to all of our lovely staff here, all of our great workers, everybody holding us down here in the studio.
All the callers,
everyone was great tonight. Thanks a lot. Check you next week. Stats and Stilettos.